already beginning to pulse with dim red light. The dream rises again. The silence that followed was heavier than the roar of battle. Leora held Kalen tighter, her tears dripping onto his face. Then we don't let him die. Kalen's eyes fluttered open, weak but resolute. His voice was a whisper only she could hear. Or, we find another way. The chamber still reeked of burnt stone and shadow. Smoke curled from the cracked sarcophagus, the runes etched upon it glowing faintly, pulsing like a dying heart. The silence was suffocating, broken only by the ragged breaths of the survivors. Kalen lay in Leora's arms, his body pale and trembling. The crown's crimson glow had faded to a dull ember, but it was still there, alive, breathing, watching. Veros leaned heavily on what remained of his shield, coughing blood into his gauntlet. We held it. By the gods, we actually held it. Erinder wasn't so sure. His eyes stayed fixed on the sarcophagus, where faint cracks bled a dim red light. His voice was hoarse, almost a whisper. No, not held. Chained. And chains break. Leora refused to hear it. She pressed her forehead against Kalen's, her tears streaking his soot-stained face. Don't talk like that. He's alive. That's what matters. But Irinder's next words cut through her fragile hope. The binding isn't complete. His hand shook as he gestured at the sarcophagus. The dream's essence is tethered to him now. It feeds on his life, and in turn, he keeps it imprisoned. The moment his heart stops, the prison shatters. Veros cursed, slamming his broken shield into the ground. So what then? We chain him up like the Watchers did, and let him rot until his bloodline dries? That's no life. Kalen stirred weakly, his lips curving into a bitter smile. It's already too late for that. I can feel it inside me. Every breath I take is borrowed from it. His voice dropped to a whisper. I'm already half its prisoner. The words hung in the air like a blade. Leora shook him, desperation cracking her voice. Don't say that. We'll find a way. We'll break the bond. Irinder, tell me there's a way. The mage hesitated, his silence more damning than any answer. Finally, he exhaled, eyes hollow. There are rumors. Ancient texts speak of a crimson bargain, a ritual that can sever such ties. But he swallowed hard. The price is steep. Always steep. Veros scowled. What kind of price? Irinder didn't meet his gaze. A life for a life. The dream doesn't release what it claims freely. Someone must willingly take his place. The chamber seemed to freeze. Leora's grip tightened on Kalen. Her heart thundered so loudly she thought the others could hear it. Then I'll do it. I'll know. Kalen's voice cut sharp, despite his weakness. He tried to push her away, but his strength was failing. I won't let you trade your soul for mine. Not you. She held his face between her hands, eyes burning with fierce resolve. And what? Let you waste away while that monster claws inside you? Watch you become something you're not. Her voice cracked. I'd rather burn with you than bury you. Veros slammed a fist against the stone floor, his frustration echoing. This is madness. One death for another? What difference does it make? The dream still feeds. It still wins. Irinder finally turned, his voice trembling with both fear and determination. Not if we outweed it. The Crimson Bargain is a trap, yes, but there are whispers of a hidden clause. If the sacrifice is chosen freely and bound willingly with love, the prison strengthens. The dream is not only chained, it's starved. Leora's eyes widened. So, if I give myself, it dies with me? Kalen's head jerked weakly. No, I won't let you. His voice grew frantic, trembling. Don't you understand? That's exactly what it wants. To lure us into bargains until nothing's left. But Leora's hand found his, and she held it tight. Her voice was soft, breaking. Kalen, I swore I'd never leave you. Not in life, not in death. If this is the way, then I'd rather end it together. Kalen stared at her, torn apart by love and dread. His hand shook violently in hers. The crown pulsed. And then, the whispers began again. They filled the chamber like smoke, slithering through cracks in the stone. Voices of past emperors, kings, warriors, all who had once borne the crown. Let her choose. Let her burn. The dream will feast, and you will be free. Kalen clutched his head, gritting his teeth as the voices clawed into him. Get out of my mind, he roared. But the crown burned hotter, its ember flaring crimson once more. And then, Kalen felt it. The dream wasn't just bound to him. It was inside him, coiled like a serpent, whispering temptations into every thought. Give her to me. I'll take her soul, and in return, you'll be strong. Strong enough to rule. Strong enough to never fail again. Kalen's hand twitched. His sword, lying nearby, rattled as if pulled toward him. Leora saw the change in his eyes, flickers of red threading through the familiar green. Her heart clenched. Kalen, she whispered, pressing her forehead against his again. You're still you. Don't listen. For a moment, he trembled, torn between the love in her touch and the fire gnawing at his soul. Then the sarcophagus cracked. A crimson fissure split its surface, light pouring through like molten lava. The dream screamed, its voice 1,000 blades. The chains strained, threatening to snap. Irinder shouted over the roar. Choose. No. If we don't act, the prison breaks and it devours us all. Veros raised his battered sword, his voice hoarse but fierce. Then we fight to the last breath. No, Kalen staggered to his feet, swaying like a drunk, his face pale, his eyes burning with crimson light. He raised his sword toward the sarcophagus, his voice shaking with fury. There's another way. The others froze. Kalen's lips curled into a grim, determined smile. If it's bound to me, then I'll drag it down myself. No bargains. No sacrifices. I'll become its prison. Forever. Leora's scream tore from her throat. No, you'll lose yourself. But Kalen only glanced at her once, his eyes soft despite the crimson fire inside them. Better me than you. The ground shook as he stepped toward the sarcophagus. The dream shrieked louder, its voice cutting through their minds. Yes, Kalen. Yes. Be mine. Be the Watcher Eternal. The floor trembled as Kalen advanced toward the sarcophagus. Crimson light spilled from its cracks, painting his armor in bloody hues, his every step echoing like the toll of a funeral bell. The crown pulsed on his brow, veins of fire spreading across its marble-white surface. His eyes, once green as the forests of his homeland, now burned with an unnatural glow, half human resolve, half dream-born corruption. Leora tried to move after him, but Veros's gauntlet caught her arm. His grip was trembling but firm. Don't, the warrior rasped. If you go near him now, you'll only give the dream what it wants. She struggled against him, her voice raw with fury and desperation. You don't understand. He's walking into its jaws alone. Irinder's staff struck the ground, sparks of warding magic hissing across the stone. His face was pale, drawn, but his eyes were fixed on Kalen. No, he isn't walking into its jaws. He's offering himself as the lock. He means to seal it forever. Veros spat blood and shook his head. That's not sealing. That's suicide. Kalen reached the sarcophagus, its heat washing over him like the breath of a furnace. Cracks split wider, spilling fire and shadow into the chamber. The dream's voice hissed from within, slipping through the stone like poison through veins. Yes, come closer. You are already mine. Be the flesh I wear. The eyes I see with. The blade I strike with. Kalen gritted his teeth, pressing his sword to the sarcophagus. Its steel turned red, glowing as though it had been thrust into a forge. His voice thundered back at the entity, ragged but defiant. No, I won't be your weapon. I'll be your prison. The dream's laughter roared through their skulls, shaking the chamber. Prison? Fool. The moment you bind yourself, you cease to be Kalen. You will be hollowed out. An eternal watcher, neither man nor shadow. You will lose everything you are. Kalen hesitated, his hand trembling on the sword's hilt. For a fleeting instant, doubt cracked through his resolve. That was all Leora needed. She tore free of Veros's grip and ran to him, her voice cutting through the storm of whispers. Kalen. He spun toward her, eyes blazing, torn between fury and grief. Stay back. I can't hold it much longer. But she didn't stop. She pressed herself against him, wrapping her arms around him even as the heat of the crown scorched her skin. Tears carved trails through the soot on her cheeks. "If you go in there alone," she whispered fiercely, "you'll lose yourself. Let me bear it with you." His chest heaved. The crown pulsed faster, sensing her nearness, hungering for the love it could twist into chains. "No," Kaelin gasped, shaking. "I'd rather burn than drag you down with me." Irinder shouted across the chamber, his voice strained but commanding. "Listen to me. If he binds it alone, the dream will hollow him out. But if the bond is shared, if two souls hold the chains together, its hunger weakens. It cannot corrupt what is divided between love and sacrifice." Leora looked up into Kaelin's fever-bright eyes, her own blazing with determination. "Then that's what we do. We bind it together." Kaelin's lips parted, trembling, torn between hope and terror. "But if you know," she cut him off. "There is no if. There is only us. Always." The sarcophagus split open. A scream like the shattering of mountains filled the chamber as a torrent of crimson fire burst forth, coiling into a monstrous form. It was neither flesh nor spirit, an endless storm of wings, eyes, and burning chains. The dream had awakened. It towered above them, a storm-given shape, its voice tearing at their sanity. "Fools! You think to chain me with your fragile hearts? I was before your empires. I will be after your bones are dust." Kaelin raised his sword, though his arm shook violently. "Leora, take my hand." Without hesitation, she did. Their fingers locked together. The crown flared. Crimson chains erupted from the ground, lashing out to coil around the dream's burning limbs. It roared, thrashing, but the chains tightened, forged from the mingling of Kaelin's defiance and Leora's love. The chamber shook violently, dust raining from the ceiling. Veros threw himself against a pillar to stay upright, shouting hoarsely, "By the gods, they're doing it!" Irinder's eyes were wide with awe and terror. "Yes, but at what cost?" The dream writhed, its storm body splitting into 1,000 faces, each screaming curses and promises. "Kaelin, kill her now and you will be free. Take her heart and rule with me. Together we will devour the world." Kaelin roared back, tightening his grip on Leora's hand until his knuckles turned white. "I will never betray her." The crown burned like a sun, searing his flesh. His skin split, crimson light bleeding from his veins. Leora screamed in pain as her own life force was pulled into the chains. But she held on. Even as her strength faltered, even as the dream clawed at her soul, she whispered through her tears, "We are stronger than you. Together." And with that, the chain snapped tight, piercing the dream's storm flesh. It shrieked, a sound that shook the heavens, as the sarcophagus swallowed it whole once more. When the light faded, silence fell. Kaelin and Leora collapsed side by side, their hands still locked together, the crown smoldering between them. The sarcophagus was sealed again, its cracks gone, its surface cold. Irinder staggered forward, his face pale with disbelief. They did it. They actually sealed it." Veros limped beside him, his voice heavy with grief. "Look at them. The question isn't whether they won. It's whether they survived." The crown pulsed once, then fell silent. Kaelin's chest rose weakly. So did Leora's. Their eyes fluttered open, dull but alive. But as Kaelin turned his head toward her, a chill passed through him. For just an instant, when her eyes met his, a flicker of crimson light sparked in her gaze. The silence in the chamber was suffocating. The echoes of the dream scream had faded, but their weight lingered, heavy as the dust settling from the fractured ceiling. The sarcophagus stood whole again, its surface smooth, cold, unyielding, like it had never split apart. Yet every soul present knew the truth. It had awakened, and it had tasted freedom. Kaelin lay on his side, breathing raggedly, his fingers still entwined with Leora's. His skin was pale, blood crusting where the crown's searing heat had left marks. His sword, once gleaming with defiance, lay blackened beside him, its steel warped from the fire it had endured. But none of that terrified him as much as what he had just seen. He turned his head, eyes glassy, to look at Leora. For a brief, fleeting second, when her gaze had met his, there had been something not hers. A spark. Crimson. Alien. Now she stirred, groaning softly as she pressed her hand against her temple. Kaelin. Her voice was faint, broken, but alive. Relief should have flooded him. Instead, dread crawled in his veins. Veros limped toward them, leaning heavily on his cracked spear. His face was a storm of awe and grief. By all the gods, you bound it. I thought I'd watch the world end here. Irinder moved slower, his staff glowing faintly, the last remnants of protective wards hissing like dying embers. His eyes, sharp despite exhaustion, were fixed on Leora. No, the world hasn't ended. Not yet. But look closely. The binding was not clean. Leora pushed herself upright, shivering. What are you saying, old man? Irinder's tone cut through the chamber like a blade. I am saying the dream is not wholly chained. Part of it remains. And I fear it has found a new vessel. Kaelin's stomach nodded. His hand tightened unconsciously around Leora's, though his eyes avoided hers. He couldn't bring himself to say it, to accuse her. But Veros was less cautious. He stepped forward, his battered armor clanking, his voice harsh. Her eyes. I saw it too. For a moment, she burned crimson. Leora stiffened, pulling her hand away. You think I? No. I fought it just as hard as Kaelin did. We won. We chained it. Irinder's staff struck the ground, sparks scattering. Yes. And yet chains do not erase hunger. The dream is patient. It seeps. It festers. And it may already be inside you. Her breath caught. Fear flashed across her face, but she masked it quickly with anger. Then what? You'll kill me? Is that the wisdom of your order? Kaelin pushed himself upright, pain tearing through him. His voice cracked, but it carried steel. No one touches her. Not while I breathe. Veros growled, frustration burning through his weariness. Kaelin, open your damned eyes. If she carries even a spark of that thing, she's a danger to all of us. What happens when it speaks through her? When it uses her? Kaelin's hand found his sword burned, bent, but still a blade. His glare was cold enough to silence the warrior. Then I'll face it. But not like this. Not with her treated as the enemy. For a moment, only the sound of dripping water echoed in the chamber. The tension was a blade, drawn and ready to cut. Then Leora rose to her feet, swaying but resolute. Her voice shook, but her eyes were steady. You don't need to argue. I felt it too. All eyes turned to her. She pressed a trembling hand to her chest, just over her heart. When the chains closed, it screamed, and part of that scream lodged itself in me. Like an ember that won't die. It whispers. Not words, not yet. But hunger. It's inside me. Kaelin's jaw clenched, but he moved closer, putting himself between her and the others. Then we'll burn it out. Together. Irinder's face darkened. If only it were that simple. The dream cannot be burned away. If it resides in her, it will grow. Slowly, insidiously, until it either consumes her or turns her into its bridge to this world. Veros cursed, slamming his spear against the floor. Then why the hell didn't we let the sarcophagus take them both? Why not seal them in while we had the chance? Kaelin's fury flared. Because without her, I would have lost. She saved me. She saved all of us. Don't you dare speak as if her sacrifice was a mistake. Leora lowered her head, her voice barely a whisper. What if he's right, Kaelin? What if I'm already lost? Kaelin grasped her shoulders, forcing her to meet his eyes. Then we'll fight it. Every moment. Every breath. Together. You are not lost. Do you hear me? Her eyes shone, tears welling despite her defiance. And there it was again, just for a heartbeat, the crimson spark, flickering deep in her gaze. Irinder saw it. Veros saw it. And though Kaelin saw it too, he refused to let go. The chamber shuddered, dust spilling again from the cracked ceiling. The sarcophagus pulsed once, faint but undeniable, like a heartbeat. Irinder turned toward it, his voice grim. The binding holds for now. But the dream's hunger is no longer confined to stone. It walks with us. Veros snarled. Then what now? Do we drag her in chains? Do we risk the world on Kaelin's faith? Leora's hands balled into fists, trembling. I won't be chained. Kalen stepped forward, his voice firm. We leave this tomb. We find answers. And we find a way to end this, without sacrificing her. Irinder studied them for a long, heavy moment. His eyes lingered on Leora's trembling form, on the crimson shadow flickering at the edges of her being. Then he nodded slowly. Very well. But know this, if she falters, if the dream seizes her will, it will not be her we face. It will be the end of all things. Kalen's voice was steady, unyielding. Then we'll just have to make sure she never falters. Leora's hand slipped back into his, her grip tight, as though anchoring herself against the storm within. And deep in her chest, the crimson ember pulsed soft, subtle, patient. Waiting, Kia Tum Chat Ho Ka Main Part 13, 1200 words. Likna Shuru Karun Jahanya Group Tum Se Bahar Nikal Kar Ne Dangers Face Karega or Leora Ka Andar Ka Struggle or Intense Ho Jaega. The first strike came like lightning. A cultist raised his staff, the crimson shard crowning it bursting with raw energy. A searing bolt shot forth, shattering stone where Kalen had been standing a heartbeat earlier. He rolled, coming up in a fluid motion, his sword cutting down across the zealot's chest. The man fell, his mask cracking in two, but the chanting didn't falter. Dozens of cultists pressed forward, their crystals glowing like stars of blood. The ruined streets of Thalmaris filled with the echo of war cries and the hum of eldritch power. Kalen barked, "Pharaohs, guard the flank." The mercenary snarled as he thrust his broken spear into the gut of a zealot, kicking the man off the shaft. Already bleeding for your damn cause, Commander. Irinder's staff blazed, a shield of translucent light flaring around them just as a volley of energy bolts rained down. The air smelled of ozone and burning stone. His voice was strained. I can hold them for moments only, choose them wisely. Leora stood at the heart of the storm. The ember inside her throbbed, pulsing in rhythm with the cultists' chant. She could feel their hunger bleeding into hers, tugging, gnawing. The voices whispered seductively, strike them down. Burn them. You are not prey, you are fire. Her knees buckled. Her vision blurred, crimson threads coiling across the edges of her sight. Kalen's voice cut through the roar. Leora, stay with me. His hand gripped her shoulder, grounding her. But his touch also fanned the ember's heat, sending waves of power through her limbs. For one terrible instant, she wanted to unleash. Instead, she clenched her fists and forced a scream. Get back. The ground split beneath her feet. A shockwave surged outward, hurling a dozen cultists like ragdolls. Walls crumbled, dust filled the air, and the chanting broke, only to rise again, more frenzied, more worshipful. The cult leader laughed, his scarred face glowing in the torchlight. Yes, show them. Every breath you waste on denial only feeds the dream. You cannot starve hunger, you can only serve it. Kalen charged him, blade flashing, but the leader moved with uncanny speed, his shard staff intercepting the strike. Sparks flew as steel clashed against crystal. You would protect her? The leader sneered, his voice carrying over the chaos. She is the end of your world. A vessel cannot be unmade, it can only be broken open. Kalen gritted his teeth, forcing the man back step by step. Then I'll shatter you first. Meanwhile, Veros fought like a cornered wolf, every movement brutal and efficient. His spear haft cracked skulls and ribs, his dagger found flesh between armor. Yet for every cultist he felled, two more surged forward. Blood soaked his leathers, but his grin was feral. Come on then, you lunatics. See how much of me it takes to feed your god. But even he began to falter as the tide pressed harder. Irinder, sweat pouring down his brow, slammed his staff into the earth. Glyphs flared beneath his feet, spreading outward in a circle of searing white light. Dozens of zealots screamed as the spell burned away their shadows, forcing them back. Yet the old mage sagged, coughing blood into his hand. Not much longer. And in the center of it all, Leora fought herself. Her chest burned. Her hands trembled with power. The ember inside her had grown teeth, gnawing, pulling. Every time a cultist fell, she felt it, like a draught of water poured into her veins. The hunger howled for more. She staggered to her knees, clutching her head. Stop, stop. I'm not yours. The whisper coiled tighter. You're mine. Her vision flickered again. Petrified statues, mouths frozen in silent screams, their stone flesh cracking as crimson light spilled through. She stood at their center, a queen of ruin. No, she shrieked, slamming her fists into the ground. Reality snapped back, but the force of her will cracked the stones beneath her. Energy rippled outward again, this time striking friend and foe alike. Kaelin was thrown back, Veros stumbled, and even Arinder's spell faltered. The cultists screamed with joy. The vessel awakens. The leader broke from Kaelin, turning toward Leora with outstretched arms. Give in, child. Be reborn. Kaelin staggered to his feet, fury blazing in his eyes. Leora, don't listen. You're stronger than this. Veros, panting and bleeding, growled, she isn't. Look at her, Kaelin. She'll burn us all. Arinder forced his failing voice into a roar. Silence, both of you. She is neither salvation nor damnation until she chooses. Let her fight. The cult leader lifted his shard high, crimson lightning crackling down its length. Then let us help her choose. He slammed it into the ground. A wave of energy tore through the ruins, splitting streets, toppling statues. Dozens of zealots fell to their knees, their bodies burning as the shards in their staves shattered, the fragments burrowing into their flesh. Their screams twisted into laughter as their bodies warped, flesh hardening into stone, veins glowing like molten cracks. The first of the dreams woken rose, half man, half statue, their faces frozen in eternal grins. Even Veros faltered at the sight. Gods below, Kaelin raised his sword again, defiance undimmed. Then we carved them down, like the rest. But as the Woken advanced, the ember inside Leora roared, answering them. She fell to her knees, clutching her chest. Every heartbeat was a hammer, every breath a furnace. She could barely tell where the whisper ended and her own thoughts began. Burn them. Claim them. They are yours. Her scream tore through the night as light burst from her eyes. The ruins of Thalmaris became an inferno. Cultists burned, statues cracked, streets shuddered. The Woken howled in pain and ecstasy, their forms unraveling in the storm. And in the eye of the chaos stood Leora, her body glowing with crimson fire, her hair whipping in a wind of her own making. Kaelin forced himself forward through the storm, his sword raised not to strike, but to reach her. His voice cut through the roar, raw with desperation. Leora, you are not the dream. You are you. Don't let it steal that from you. Her eyes locked on him, gold warring with crimson, humanity with hunger. For one breathless heartbeat, silence fell. And then she whispered, her voice breaking, "Hold me back, before I break myself." The ruins of Thalmaris burned. Statues split and screamed, voices that belonged to no living throat echoing into the night. The Woken cultists, half stone, half flesh, lurched forward, their molten veins blazing. The earth itself trembled beneath their steps, as though the bones of the ancient city rejected their presence. And at the center stood Leora. Her body glowed with crimson fire, her eyes blazing between molten red and shimmering gold. Power rippled from her in uncontrollable waves, tearing stone apart, burning the very air. The dream was inside her now, no longer whispering, but roaring, hungry to devour the world through her. Kaelin fought through the storm, battered and bloodied. His sword was gone, lost in the quake, but he didn't falter. His voice, hoarse yet unbroken, rose above the chaos. Leora, don't let it take you. But her body shook violently, every muscle pulled in two directions. Her lips parted, and two voices spoke through one throat, her own trembling one, and the dream's layered, monstrous whisper. I am fire. I am ruin. I am yours. No, Kaelin roared. He stumbled forward, gripping her arms. The fire seared his flesh instantly, but he didn't let go. You are not ruin. You are Leora. You are more than what it made you. Her eyes locked onto him, gold flickering desperately beneath crimson. Veros dragged himself from the rubble, coughing blood. His armor was broken, his spear snapped, Yet still he fought off the Woken with nothing but a jagged dagger. Every strike was brutal, every move fueled by rage and survival. Damn fools, he spat, slashing a cultist across the throat. She's gone. Look at her. You'll all die for nothing. But even as he cursed, he didn't stop fighting. Some part of him refused to abandon them, even as despair ate at his voice. Irinder collapsed to one knee, his staff trembling as he held the last of his strength in a failing barrier around the group. His face was ashen, blood dripping from his nose, yet his eyes never left Leora. "Child," he rasped, "the dream is not power. It is hunger. Hunger without end. If you yield, it will not stop with you, it will consume all." Leora's body convulsed. Crimson fire burst from her chest, knocking Kaelin back into the rubble. Her scream tore the air apart, half agony, half ecstasy. The ground beneath her feet split wide, glowing cracks spreading outward like veins of molten stone. The cult leader, burned but unbroken, raised his arms in triumph. His eyes glowed like shards. "Yes! At last, the vessel awakens. Let the old world drown, and the dream rise anew." His followers howled, even as fire consumed them. They wanted nothing but to feed the birth of their god. Leora staggered forward, her hair whipping in a storm of fire. She looked at Kaelin, at Veros, at the dying Irinder. And she saw the ruins, the petrified faces of thousands who had already been claimed. Her voice cracked as she whispered, not to them, but to herself. "What am I?" The dream answered for her, "You are mine." But Kaelin's voice cut through again, raw with desperation. "You're Leora. A girl who still laughs at dawn. A girl who saved me more times than I can count. A girl who is stronger than the darkness that hunts her." Every word was a blade, cutting against the dream's chains. Veros, bleeding and half delirious, snarled, "And if you're nothing else, be the one who spits in a god's eye before it swallows us whole." Even Irinder, his strength nearly gone, whispered through bloodied lips, "Choose, child, while you still can." The storm inside her built to a breaking point. Visions tore through her mind of cities crumbling, of oceans of statues rising, of fire consuming every living thing. But also visions of Kaelin's steady eyes, of Veros' stubborn defiance, of Irinder's weary hope. The ember inside her roared, demanding surrender. But another flame, smaller, fragile, hers, fought back. Her knees buckled. Her scream was torn from her throat. And then she chose. Light erupted from her body. Not crimson, but gold. The dream howled, a sound like glass shattering across the sky. Its whispers screeched in fury as the golden fire consumed them, burning away the threads it had woven into her soul. The Woken shrieked as their molten veins dimmed, their stone shells cracking apart into lifeless rubble. The cult leader staggered, his shard staff splintering in his grip. "No," he roared. "You cannot deny the dream. It is eternal." But Leora's golden gaze fell on him, steady now, no longer wavering. "Nothing hungry is eternal." She raised her hand, and the fire of her choice poured through him. The shard in his chest cracked, shattered, and with it the last scream of the dream's tether. His body crumbled into dust. Silence fell over Thalmaris. The storm was gone. The fire dimmed. The ruins lay broken, but the whispers had ended. Leora collapsed, her body limp. Kaelin caught her before she hit the ground, holding her close despite his burned hands. She trembled, but her eyes were her own again, gold, clear, human. I almost," she whispered. "You didn't," Kaelin said fiercely. "That's all that matters." Veros staggered over, bloodied and scowling. "Hell's girl. Next time you nearly end the world, warn us first." Yet his eyes held something softer, respect, maybe even pride. Irinder slumped fully now, his strength spent, his face lined with exhaustion. She chose. That is all history will remember. Above them, the night sky was quiet for the first time in what felt like ages. No whispers, no fire, no chains. The Watchers had prevailed, not by steel, not by spells, but by the choice of one girl who refused to be devoured. But as Kaelin held her, he knew this was not an end. Because somewhere, in the deepest dark of forgotten realms, hunger never truly sleeps. And one day, the world would need its watchers again.